Yo, what's going on, Kicks Army? Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my updated 2019 student portfolio. Now, if you did not already get a chance to, I'll be sure to link the old portfolio video in the corner somewhere, anywhere. Now, there's a couple of repeat projects that I decided to keep, but you're going to notice that the layout is completely different. And what's actually pretty cool is that I got a lot of good feedback from a number of different agencies in my local area. I spoke to a number of art directors. I got a lot of really good feedback, so I'll be sure to share you guys the feedback that I got so that way we can both learn together. Now, even though there's a lot of little things that I do need to adjust to make this portfolio perfect, this is actually going to be the last time that I ever touch my student portfolio, and I'll get to that towards the very end. Also, if you're a student or somebody who's looking to get into the advertising agency world in one of these bigger companies as a starting graphic designer or production artist, stay till the very end of the video and I'm going to give you a bunch of tips that might help better increase your chances at landing a job. And of course, I will include links as to where I got my portfolio cover, as well as the paper I used for the inside of the book in the description down below. Now, with all that being said, let's get it! Alright, now let's actually get into the portfolio. To start off, you're going to notice there's a little bit of glare. That's from my ring light. Don't worry about it. It's not actually on the portfolio case itself. Speaking about the portfolio case, I got it from Used Portfolios on Etsy. I'll provide a link in the description down below so you guys can go ahead and check it out yourself. To have the die cut was separate from the case itself. So I purchased the case, and then additionally onto the case, I purchased the die cut. All right off the bat, if you reference my older portfolio video, you're gonna notice that the layout is completely different. So the way this is set up, I have 10 different projects. Each project has 3 spreads, so a total of 6 pages, and the first 2 pages are just like an introductory, because if you, again, reference my old portfolio, it was really tough to tell when a new project ended and a new one started. So this will at the very least make it clear, so that way you'll have colored edges to tell, okay, now I know I'm getting into a new project. So branding collateral for my internship that I was at over at Softworks, and essentially they didn't have any branding collateral done that represented the business in the same way that they felt about it. So what this does is I show some references of what their old branding collateral would be. Business cards, letterhead, some of their branding guide, and then I'll always have notes and comments on the side pertaining to whatever it is I'm talking about. On the top bars, you're gonna see I have what the actual thing I'm trying to show in the project is, as well as what I did it for or who I did it for. And then over here on this side, we have some examples of some of the end results of the stationery that they selected. So this would be the final letterhead, other examples of it, the final business card, other examples of it, as well as the final envelope. And then this would be the final spread for this particular project. So over here I have some of the pages of the branding guide, as well as some social media assets. These would be an example of a story that you could add to highlight, as well as some template covers. Look at the handsome face. Yeet. You're gonna notice that it's gonna be a common thing whenever I have multiple different pages that I just wanna show in a book, where some of them might be cut off, because the idea is not to show you every page verbatim, just to give you the sense of how the overall feel of these pages flow. Next, we got logo redesign. So this was actually from the previous book. I won't go into this one too much, but I will show you guys some of the changes that I did make. Again, you're gonna notice on this first page, I have this dark overlay on an image in the background that either represents the project or the assignment that I'm talking about, or something directly related to the business itself. And again, you can kind of see, look at that. It's very easy to see where projects start and stop now, whereas before everything just kind of blended in together. Okay, going ahead and showing some of the old logos as well as a sample of their website. And here, again, if you remember the old project, this is cleaned up a lot more, and it really shows the process a lot better, because I'm pulling out the different logos that I felt like were the strongest of each section. So that way it's not like, oh, you got to go find the ones that I ended up picking for the next spread. No, it's right here. These are the ones that I felt like were the strongest. Thus, these are the ones that you're going to see on the following page that are recreated. Like right here, you see, I'm starting to pull the ones that I had from the previous page, play around with them, seeing which ones work better, which ones don't, and then from there, combining the pieces that I feel like work best to create the final logo, and then actually going ahead and applying it, okay? Seeing how it looks like on mock-ups, putting it on letterheads, stationery packages, and having the whole thing together feel like something authentic, something tangible that you can go ahead and picture yourself wearing or using. Movie poster. So this was also from the previous. Again, you can see the color coordination. It's so good. So one big critique that I got for this one was that when it comes to the logo, because in theory this would be the logo, Curse of the Armed Lizard, there's like 5 typefaces going over there. There's 3 different overlays within it. It's too wild, okay? Bring it back in. Don't go too crazy with all the overlays. Don't go crazy with all the fonts. And then compositionally, the lizard is too low. There's a lot of open space. This in the background is not really that important compared to what's happening over here, so this should really be adjusted. There's a lot of little tweaks that could be made with this one. Now again, a lot of this you already saw from the previous portfolio. I'll link to that in the description down below, of course. So nothing's really changed too much, just cleaning a lot of this stuff up. And you're gonna notice what I'm trying to do in terms of the layout here. The background's a slightly off-white, and then I have a lot of stuff that I'm trying to pull out, either with the white background or enclosed into whatever it is, with a drop shadow so it makes it pop. So in this case, you can really see how the white background for the image contrasts again the off-white, so that way it just gives a little bit more depth. And I'm having to hold these pages down so that way they actually stay down all the way, because there is a little bit of a curve with this type of book, but it's not too bad. And the important part when it comes to these projects that require a lot of Photoshop, you really want to pull out the different pieces that you use so that way they can see how much work you actually did. Otherwise, if I just have this and no pieces, they can't tell what I worked on and what I didn't, because this could have been mostly done and I could have just added the typography on top. They wouldn't know. And then you always want to include mockups. I think if you reference the old portfolio, I had 2 pages with 2 mockups. That's overkill. One does the job just fine. Use that real estate, use that space on your page for the things that matter, which is the process. Movie poster campaign. Again, look at this color coordination. This is my favorite project by far, but one of the biggest critiques that I got with this, when we look at the references and the stylistic vibes that I was trying to go for, which would be these are a lot more cartoonish, artistic, and they take a lot more creative freedom in how they go about it. Like these building colors, completely unrealistic, and we're talking about a real life setting, but within the frame of the illustration work, like that yellow sky, for example, you never see yellow sky, at least I haven't, right? Like there's a lot of freedom that they take to creating these things, whereas with my process, it was more literal, like a literal reconstruction of some of these things, which isn't necessarily bad, but for what I was trying to reference, for the style that I was trying to interpret, I didn't exactly hit the mark. And again, before I had like multiple mock-ups of multiple posters, one mock-up of one poster is fine. That's all they need to see. And I'll actually put down some resources in the description below is where you can get a lot of free mock-ups. There's a few websites that I use, so I'm sure you guys will like that. Cookie comments. I know you guys like this project from last time as well. So I didn't actually have a mock-up for this because the box sizing was a little weird. So I brought the actual box that I had, brought it to Walmart, and then went to work. Not a lot has changed here from the previous portfolio, so I'll just kind of keep moving. We got the layout and then an in-house mock-up. So I bought some Cookie Crisp, put it in a bowl, got some milk, got an apple. I don't even know what this little thing is on top of the apple, but just trying to create a nice setting. But if you can use a mock-up, use a mock-up. It's cute and all to try to set up these things, but mock-ups, there's so many ones that are free out there, and there's even better ones that are a little bit of money that you could use that would do a much better job at selling this than the photo itself, but that's if you're really trying to get your work to be pristine. What I find really interesting about this project, so the agency that did the branding for this company, 82 West, I actually got a portfolio review with one of their creative directors there. So when I got to this page in the portfolio review, they're like, no way, and I'm like, yes way. So it was really cool to see their reaction. They absolutely loved it. Essentially, they're a distillery. They have 2 new flavors coming about, vanilla and blueberry. And what I did is I designed the packaging for those flavors. Now they didn't ultimately use this. This was part of a competition for my school, but this ended up being an awesome portfolio piece that I could use. So a lot of this is constructed the way they have their stuff set up on their website. For example, these little thumbnails, they're also cropped images essentially of their labels. So what I did is I said, okay, if they already have 8 flavors and if that's the style of the brand in which they're already working with, I should put my 2 at the end to confirm that it looks like it fits within the same vibes. And I'm biased, of course, when I say this, but I believe I do. And then I put my 2 bottles at the end of some of theirs. Again, I'm trying to really show how the whole thing fits together. My job was not to recreate their brand. My job was not to do anything crazy outside the realms of what they already have. My job is to make something that fits within the confines of the structure of the brand they already have in place. And this was actually a pretty good photo that I took over at their distillery, and I got a few of their bottles and lined it up with mine. I had the actual label printed, and that's why it looks a little funky, because I didn't know the exact size of what it should be, so I just guesstimated. So you can see how the label is actually bigger than the bottle itself, but it turned out awesome anyway. And again, the agency that designed all this said they loved it, so that's a great sign. Annual report, I won't go too deep into this. This was in the last book as well, so if you want more information on that, you can go back there. But again, when it comes to a lot of these different spreads for any kind of layout thing, I'm not interested in showing you guys every single page, just the overall gist of what the feel of the compositions look like. Going into more of the same things, again, some of these pages are being cropped. That's intentional. That's how I wanted it to look. And then I have more spreads over here and the mock-up that I actually took a picture of as well. Again, if you guys can go ahead and find a mock-up for whatever you're doing online, use those, because they're usually done very, very well, much better than you can probably do it yourself. And the fact that I couldn't find a mock-up with the size book that I was working with in a reasonable fashion, I did the second best thing that I could do, set up a mock-up. Custom typeface. So again, this was also in the previous book, kind of renamed it. Before it was Hyper Deluxe, and now I simplified it Deluxe. Won't go into this one too much. Essentially taking an existing typeface, deconstructing it. So there's the existing typeface, slowly deconstructing it, pulling out the pieces that make it, recreating those pieces to recreate a new typeface, and then showing it be applied. So linked, okay, this is actually very funny. This is a new project as well. So I participated along with a team of 9 others in this year's NSAC competition. So essentially the client was Wiener Schnitzel, right? They make hot dogs that are really popular on the West Coast. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a campaign that will help improve the perception of hot dogs, which would correspondingly increase sales of hot dogs across the board. Our team came up with the concept of a dating app that connected you with the hot dog of your choice, kind of tying in the fact that people are very diverse and the category of hot dogs is equally as diverse. It's not a monolith, it's a spectrum, right? So I'm showing all the things that I created for the campaign, which would be the logo, as well as some of the illustrations and the UI for the app. And I'll actually, now that I think about it, I'm also going to include a video of one of the videos that I filmed and kind of edited myself right about now.
It's hard to find the one, you know? You're out there searching for that one thing that'll give you that warm feeling in your stomach, only to get burned time and time again. I want something real. I want to be fulfilled. Honestly, if I could just find a Frank that's low in sodium, has its own poppy seed bun, is okay with heavy relish, and likes grilled onions, I'd be happy.
So again, showing the logo, one of my other classmates came up with this concept. So it's 2 different hot dogs creating a heart. I thought that was a great concept, but we couldn't just use this as the final logo, of course. So I went ahead and I recreated it. I'm just kind of showing how it's applied. Full color, black and white, and then the same thing reversed on a black background. And then here are examples of the illustrations that I made, right? So we got Brat, he's like the surfer dude. He's got grilled onions on his hair, a little mayonnaise on his nose. He's got a surfboard bun, right? We got the nerd over here. He's like a chicken dog. We got the goth dog over here, yoga. And again, the idea, so this would be like a hipster, right? Chad, the hipster. Again, the concept was to make that correlation between the diverse people personalities that we see in the world, especially those that you'll find on Tinder, and comparing that to the different hot dog varieties out there. And then I created the UI for the app as well. Lastly, now, earlier I had mentioned that I would never actually go ahead and redo my student portfolio. This is the reason why. So I spoke with a number of agencies, like I said earlier, and whenever we got to this project, this just ultimately blew them away. Not because of what I ultimately put in here, but because of what it means and the rest of the stuff that goes with it. If you are a fan of this channel, you know exactly what all this is. But for those of you who are not, and there might be a few of you who don't understand, what my channel centers around is teaching others how to draw the industry's most popular sneakers, such as Nikes or Jordans, things along that nature. And what I also do is, because I have all my videos on YouTube and stuff, I also have a website where I have all these stencils for the videos of the shoes that I drawn posted on my website for free, KicksArt.com. And people can go ahead and print them out and color their favorite colorways on their favorite sneaker models, or just do whatever they want to do. So I created this, right? I've been working at it for about 5 years. And then going into it, I start showing different examples of different assets that I have, as well as screenshots of some of the videos I have, some of the process of the video. So I'll use these in my about section. This has been the banner for a long time. And when I start telling people the story about what I did, how I went about doing it, the entire process of creating everything, they were just blown away because, and this is the key thing too, what I have done with KicksArt is way more in depth, way more interesting, and way more authentic than any other piece in my portfolio by far, because the rest of that was essentially student work. Whereas this is all personal. This is all something I did for me. This is self-initiated work. This is, in essence, who I am, because it's the work I decided to do that I didn't have to have a grade for. Going into some of these screenshots of the website, showing how I have the new Stencils tab organized so that way it's a lot easier to find whatever you're looking for. Examples of the stencils, the original stencil as well as the 4-up version. And then this was actually really interesting too. I haven't told you guys about this. A few months back, I had a gentleman from Malaysia contact me. He's like, hey, we're having an Air Max day at one of our shops. We wanted to know if we can print out your stencils, make a few modifications and use them for a coloring contest. I'm like, dude, yes, just send me pictures. And sure enough, they did. Guys, I don't even know where Malaysia is, but I know it's somewhere far away from where I live. And the fact that somebody else on another side of the world finds the stuff that I made useful and they wanted to reach out to me to use it, that's a beautiful thing. So the reason why I'm never gonna work on the student aspect of my portfolio ever again is because my next portfolio that I'm going to make is actually going to be a brand audit, a creative content strategy, and marketing strategy centered all around KicksArt. Because think about it, it's going to show the creative, not just like the visual creative of what I make, but the creativity of the concept behind it. It's going to show the entrepreneurial aspect of me going ahead and making something out of nothing because again, these creative agencies love stuff like that. It's going to have the social media marketing aspect of it, as well as the marketing aspect of it in general. I'll be going over the budgeting, how I plan to do advertising. I'll be going over how I plan on growing the brand over the course of a year, my quarterly ratings, all that stuff, which is exactly what an agency does, just broken up into a microcosm of my channel. And that's going to be just way better than any portfolio I could have of just simple student work. And guys, if you can find whatever the KicksArt is for you, make that into your portfolio, because it can be one piece broken down into a bunch of different micro pieces that exactly relate all the different aspects of starting a business, of creating something. And that will help you get a job because it's way more than student work. So yes, I'm going to create the KicksArt portfolio. I'm going to make a video on it whenever it gets done. I still have a lot of stuff I have to do to get that through, but I just wanted to let you guys know that this is by far the best piece that I've had, and I didn't even realize that it was a good idea to put in my portfolio up until a few months ago. So it's crazy how some things can come from nothing. Now, before we wrap up the video, let me just go over a few tips that will help better your chances of landing an agency job. Now, if you're a student or a young creative and you're looking to actually get into the industry, you probably know by now that your best chance of getting into an environment that's best to sustain what you're learning is to get into an agency. You'll be working with a team of creatives that probably have up to decades worth of experience in a number of different fields that include both the creative side and the business side of marketing. But here's the tricky thing. Everybody wants to work at these places. They only have so many jobs open at a given time. That's even if they're hiring. So how can you, even as good as your portfolio is, better your chances at getting a job at one of these places? It's actually pretty simple. Let's look at the timeline of the employer-employee relationship. Let's say at the very end, right, the very pinnacle is you're working for an employer, you have an actual job. Where at the other end of the spectrum, you might have had one conversation with an employer that works at an agency. So that's the entire spectrum in there, right? Most people, especially most students that are about to graduate or recent graduates, they want to skip to the end of the line and get that interview to get that job, which is understandable. But the way I framed it, it's a whole timeline, okay? There's a lot of space in the middle. A lot of people are trying to jump into the very end, which is extremely hard because you're skipping a lot of the process that happens in between. Now, where am I getting at with all this? Because I'm sure you guys have heard this phrase in the past. It's not just what you know, it's who you know. Think about this. If I'm an employer and I'm looking to hire an entry-level graphic designer to work in my agency, and I have two candidates that I could potentially pick. One who has a good portfolio and they just submit an application, they're hoping to get an interview, And then somebody else who I've had conversations with in the past, maybe I've done a portfolio review with them, I've gotten to know them, I see their work, I've already talked with them multiple times, I have a relationship with them. Which one of the two am I likely to pick if they both produce the good work that I need? The answer is very simple. It's very likely that the person that you already have the relationship with is going to get the interview and or the job because you've already vetted that they do good work in this scenario. So if we can establish that who you know is a big factor in this hiring process, what we need to do is we need to establish as much of a conversation with these different agencies as we can. Now, if you're somebody like me and you know that your personality, your charisma, the way you talk to people is one of your strongest assets, if you submit an application online, they're not gonna see any of that. They might get a little bit out of what you write, but there's no way they can get the full context of who you are unless they actually talk to you. That's why this timeline is so important. So again, the bottom end of the timeline is you having that initial conversation. Maybe it's at like a local networking event or a party, or you just see them out in the streets, whatever it is, you had that first conversation. The other end of the timeline is you actually working. So somewhere towards the end of the timeline, not all the way at the end, is the interview, right? So you're getting pretty far into the timeline. But even getting an interview is very difficult. I mean, again, all these people are applying, everybody's got good portfolios, everybody's got decorative resume, so what's gonna make you stand out? Because you do good work and they do good work. What's gonna make the difference? Well, the difference is gonna be the relationship that you have. Now, let's say there's an agency. You've never spoken with anybody there. You just know that you want to get to work there. So if I'm somebody who wanted to work for, let's say, one agency in particular, I don't know anybody who works there. I've never spoken with any of their creative directors, any of their graphic designers, nobody. What would be the steps I would have to take to start to facilitate that relationship to show that I'm interested, and that way, at the very least, they get to know that I exist? Well, there's actually 3 different things you can try to do that are prior to that interview stage in the timeline. A little bit into that timeline, you have your internships. If they're offering internships, that's a much easier way to get fit in with their organization, getting into their network, speaking to the people that work there, because with an internship, you'll essentially be working there. Even more down in the timeline, you have a shadowing day. Now, when I talk about shadowing, I mean like literally shadowing. Like you'll be sitting behind the creative and whatever their day-to-day activities are, maybe for like a 4-hour period, and you get to learn what their job is by watching them work. And in that, you get to ask them a lot of questions. Hey, how did you do that? Hey, what was that hotkey? Hey, how are you able to work so fast? And you'll have a direct conversation with the person that you're shadowing. It also gives them a chance to kind of fill you out as well, and that builds some of the relationship. But one more step down, and this is the key: portfolio reviews. Now, if you're a junior, a senior, or just a go-getter that already has a portfolio made, getting a portfolio review is one of the best things you could possibly do to help initiate the conversation between you and a potential employer. Now, the portfolio doesn't have to be a print portfolio, it doesn't have to be a physical device, it could be a website that you have. But either way, you want to have a portfolio made with at least 5 to 7 projects. The beauty of these portfolio reviews is they're essentially mini interviews, okay? You'll be speaking with either one or multiple creative directors or graphic designers. They'll be flipping through your work one by one and speaking on the work in terms of what you could be doing better and what you're already doing well at. Getting that one-on-one time, or sometimes 3-on-1 time if there's 3 of them, which I've had happen multiple times, and that's awesome. Getting that time for them to speak with you directly on your work, not necessarily worrying about anything else in terms of how you are as a candidate for a potential job, makes it very clear to see who you are as a person, because you're showing them the work that you've done and you're receiving the feedback, the critique on what they think your work is. That will tell them a lot about how you handle feedback. That will tell them a lot about how you're able to be in a work-like environment, if you're a good team member or not, and that will say a lot. I've done about 7 to 10 of these portfolio reviews with a number of different agencies, and they've all lasted pretty much like an hour. So in essence, that's like an hour interview I get with the employer that I could potentially have, because they're reviewing my work. They're talking to me one-on-one. They're seeing how I accept the feedback and how enthusiastic I am to learn that I could make better changes to improve my work. If, and this is the key, if there is a possibility that at the time you have a portfolio review with an agency and they are hiring and they like your work, and through the duration of this review they like you, that could only increase your chances of getting a job there. Because again, think about it. They will have reviewed your work. They will think it's either good or good enough for you to be able to work with because they could help sharpen out the things that maybe you're not as refined in. And then on top of that, they're getting to know you. They're getting to speak to you one-on-one. And for me, these reviews, again, have lasted usually an hour or more. So that gives you plenty of enough time to give off your personality to get them to understand who you are and how you work. Now, if there's good chemistry between you and the person that you're speaking to, it's very likely that it's okay to go ahead and add them on LinkedIn. Usually you can ask for a business card if they don't already hand it to you, and then bam, you literally have a connection made with an employer that you're hoping to get a job from. So then if you're a go-getter and you post different things on LinkedIn that have to do with the work that you do, they will see it because they're on LinkedIn. All of these creative professionals are absolutely on LinkedIn. That's a sign for get a LinkedIn. So to put all this into context, I had a print portfolio. I also had the website that accompanied it, but the print piece is nice because a lot of these older creative directors like having that physical touch, especially in such a digital world. So you have the portfolio. What you do is, in your local markets, in my case, it was Tampa and St. Petersburg, I went on Google, okay? I typed in ad agencies in whatever, right? Whatever location that you're looking in. You look at all the different ad agencies, you get their phone numbers, you call them. Assuming they pick up, which if they're an actual agency, they probably should, or if not, you can leave a phone number and they'll get back to you. You essentially ask to speak with one of their creative directors for a portfolio review. Usually this entire conversation will then be vetted through email, but the fact is now you're in, you can start to schedule something to get that portfolio review. So in my case, if I was going to call an agency, it would sound a little something like this. Hi, my name is Steve Camargo and I'm a graphic design senior at the Art Institute of Tampa. I was wondering if I could potentially set up a portfolio review with one of your creative directors to see how I can better my work prior to graduation. And that's it. What are they going to say? No, we don't want to help you be a better artist. Like, that's not like, if they don't have the time, they don't have the time, and then you just move on to the next person on the list, okay? If they say no, you didn't lose anything. You're only hoping to see which agencies will say yes, because that will start the conversation, that will facilitate that process. And ideally, when you actually have these portfolio reviews, you get the feedback that they give you because they're going to give you feedback because you're a student and all you can do is improve. You get the feedback that they give you, you actually do the thing, and then you ask for a follow-up review when you've made all these changes to your portfolio, probably reprinted it, right? And then that facilitates the conversation even more. Hey, this student reached out to me, they got a lot of good feedback, and they acted upon it in a somewhat timely manner. And they actually wanted to come back and show me the results. Like, why would that not excite them? Look, I'm not pretending to be an expert on these sort of things, but it's really basic. If you're trying to get a job somewhere, and especially a place that employs creative people, the easiest thing you can do to possibly better your chances of getting a job there is speaking with the creative directors that work there, getting to know them, and getting them to understand who you are and remember your face. Now, there's one more tip that I have that's very crucial to this entire process, okay? Let's say you get that portfolio review with that agency, right? You had gone through the entire 1 hour segment and they looked through all your work and everything is great. Chances are at the very end, they're gonna ask you if you have any questions. And if they don't, you should ask this question absolutely. Because let's face it, at this point in your mind, you really wanna ask the question, are you guys hiring or will you hire me? But you have to understand that's a very low ball question. That's a low hanging fruit. What we have to do, especially as creatives, we have to think about the bigger picture, all right? We have to think about the higher level questions. So if the low ball question or the low ball version of this question is, are you hiring? A higher level question is, based on the work that you've seen, do I have the required skills enough to warrant a position at this job, right? Right? Because the question, are you hiring or will you hire me, puts them in a weird spot because then they have to be the judge, jury, and executioner right there. Instead, what you could do is say, okay, based on the work that you've seen, do I have good enough skills? And if not, what do I need to do to improve to warrant a position here? That takes all the pressure off of them. They can be completely honest with you, thus giving you the honest feedback. I'm not saying I'm a genius, I just know some things. But guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed everything I talked about today. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, make sure to leave that in the comment section down below. I'll be sure to get back to everybody. This channel focuses around sneakers, art, and basketball, but if you wanna see me more graphic design related content, be sure to leave any questions you have down below as well. With that being said, y'all already know. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Yeet.